Trading is not a thing where you can go in and expect a consistent daily profit goal or like a daily paycheck that's reliable. Profits come in bulks. I've had some months where I've made more in 1 month than the prior 10 years. Investing can be simple, but it's not easy. It does take work, right? And if you're not willing to do the work, you don't have to be an active investor or trader. You can just buy an S&P 500 fund or just buy Bitcoin and hold it long term, right? And then focus on what you're really good at. Not everybody has to be a wizard of the market.
Just having that confidence that, okay, this is not the only trade.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be another one.
Yeah, the markets aren't going anywhere.
Right.
If anything, they're becoming more accessible and there's more opportunity day by day. So I say the rule number one is don't do anything that's going to permanently take you out of the game. I wrote the book really to convince all my Wall Street buddies that, hey, this thing is legit, it's not going anywhere, and you can make a shit ton of money trading it. Because at that time, everybody I knew was laughing at me like, Chris, why are you jumping ship on futures and going to Bitcoin? Like, what is this scammy little thing? So I wrote the book with those people in mind, like, here's why this is going to be huge, and here's why you don't want to sleep on this. Entrepreneurship and building wealth is like driving from New York to LA in the dark with no map. But if you pay attention to the signs and you ask for help along the way and you just keep forward progress, you're gonna get there.
Welcome to another episode of the Aaron Darko Show. My name is Aaron Darko, and today I'm with my good friend, Mr. Chris Dunn. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And Chris Dunn is a 21-year trading and investing veteran. He's an early Bitcoin investor and author, and he's the founder of Skill Incubator and the host of the We Talk Money show. So this interview is going to be so cool because we're going to get into how to build wealth, right? And how to really build that generational wealth and build that lifestyle that people only dream about, because you're a living example of that, and you've been doing this for 21 years. So first of all, welcome to the show, and I'm really excited for this because I've been trying to get you on for so long, and it's finally happened.
Thanks for having me. It's good to connect.
Yeah. And also, we didn't touch on the YouTube channel that you have. You have a huge YouTube channel, which people should check out. Chris Dunn, just search on YouTube. Yeah. And if you want to know about investing and all that kind of stuff. So first of all, you've been trading for 21 years.
It's crazy to say that. Yeah, it's like, where did the time go?
Yeah. And so what is the backstory? Because I know the backstory where, you were coming out of the corporate world. Yeah. And so just talk about that, because you actually made 1.2 million within 18 months of leaving the corporate world. Yeah. And that's absurd. That's insane growth in such a short
It was like
amount.
a mixture of just good timing and right place, right time. Yeah. But I actually started trading in high school. I was working at a mortgage company, and one of the guys in the office was like, Chris, come check this out. And he pulled up some charts, and he was day trading futures. This was 2001. And I saw him, he made a little over $2,000 in 20 minutes. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to do that, And I opened an account, and I remember I won $100 on my first trade. And then over the next 2 weeks, I blew out a $5,000 account. And I was like, oh shit, this is not as easy as I was hoping, but I just became obsessed with it. And was trading part-time from then until 2007, which is when I quit the corporate world. I was working at another mortgage company after high school, quit that when the housing boom imploded on itself, and then went full-time. So yeah, I guess I've been trading full-time for 15 years.
Wow. Yeah. So what was that like when you quit your corporate job?
Well, I came home and I told my roommate at the time, I was like, all right, man, I just quit my job. I'm never going back to work for somebody again. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to become a millionaire. And he was like, all right, man, I believe in you. And he was real supportive, and we were hanging out for several weeks, and I remember being up till 2, 3 in the morning every night, just trying to figure out ways to make it work.
And so what was the hardest part about that transition for you?
So it was it sucked going broke, I'll tell you that. So, when the mortgage business imploded, the house that I built went from $300,000 in value to $130,000 in value. So I just basically gave that back to the bank. That was where I put a large down payment down. I had a lot of my net worth tied up in that. and I learned. I'm like, okay, well, never going to do that again. And then, just basically bled through my savings as I was trying to figure out full-time trading, and basically did a combination of like hustle income, real estate, and trading to build that account back up. And so I started building software, sold some software to other traders, and then just took whatever revenue I had coming in and put it right back into the markets.
And so you were studying like every day. There was no work-life balance at this time.
No.
Right?
No, I mean, I told Nikki, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, I said, listen, I can't really afford to take you out to dinner right now, but if you stick with me, I promise good things are going to happen. And so she was also real supportive.
Why do you think she stuck with you?
I don't know. You'll have to ask her. I ask her that to this day. I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you putting up with me?
It's funny because I know Nikki, so that's why we're sharing an inside joke there.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, she is awesome. So what about for people listening, so okay, you quit your job and you didn't know that you were going to, but you had faith. It sounds like you had faith because you told your roommate, I'm going to be a millionaire. So you believed in yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's missing from most people is they just don't believe that they can do it.
It's just, like entrepreneurship and building wealth is like driving from New York to LA in the dark with no map. It's like, all you have to do is start, and you can only see as far as your headlights will show you, right? But if you pay attention to the signs and you ask for help along the way and you just keep forward progress, you're gonna get there. But a lot of people never start because they're like, oh my God, I don't have a map. I don't know, what if I get lost? What if I run out of gas? What if? And they let all of those fears keep them from embarking on the journey in the first place. But yeah, you just got to have faith in yourself that if you put in the work and you just never give up, like eventually you're going to make progress. The only real way to fail is to quit.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that analogy. Like driving driving in the night when you've got to look at the signs and just looking at the signs and focusing on the step in front of you rather than everything else.
Exactly. Focus on what you can see right ahead of you and focus that over a long enough period of time, you're going to make massive progress.
But it's so easy to get overwhelmed, right? And think about future projections.
Yeah. Like
where I'm going to be. And then that's what actually messes everything up because all we've got to do is a step in front.
Yep.
It's like climbing the mountain. Have you been to the mountain here?
No, not yet.
Oh, but it's the same thing, right? Thing? Yeah. Just like climbing the mountain is like step by step.
Yeah.
Like that's how you get up the mountain. But it's so simple, and nature always gives us these lessons, right? I know you like traveling. We'll get into that as well. He's traveled over 100 countries. And, so going back to this though, because for people listening, what I've learned over doing the podcast is that, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, is like people want to know about the shit story.
Yeah.
Like what's the shit you had to get through to afford yourself the luxuries that you have now?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, there's so many shit stories. Where do I start?
Yeah, you could start with the worst.
Look, there's been times where I look back and I realize something I was working on for like 6 months to a year was basically just a complete waste of time. There was also times where I lost money in trading that I felt like, oh shit, how am I going to climb back out of this hole? So there's all of those stories that happen along the way. I think for anybody who's an active market participant, right? Anybody who's trading or investing, you're going to have these moments where you go, okay, could this be the end, right? Like when you have a drawdown in your account. That's something that a lot of people, when you get tested like that, you're either going to V-bottom bounce and make it, or you're going to quit and run away and go back to like a safe, secure job or something like that.
So what kept you going then? So let's talk about that. So if you're open to share, when you lost the most amount of money you've ever lost, if you can share numbers if you want, but like what was the emotional effect? What was the emotional effect it had on you?
I would say like the most painful loss for me wasn't like a single trade. It was as the markets got more efficient. So history of the markets, in the early 2000s when I started trading, this was when, high-speed internet was just becoming a thing and people were able to trade from home and electronic trading was really new. And then around the 2008 financial crisis, And after that, all these algorithms started to come into the markets, and the markets became more efficient, which made it harder for day traders to make money. And so I think one thing that just really stung for me is I was like trying to beat a dead horse, where I was competing against these Wall Street firms, and the strategy I was using was becoming less and less profitable, but I was just trying to like get blood out of a stone. And thankfully, that's when I discovered Bitcoin. Was around 2011, 12. I heard about it, thought it was a scam, ignored it, but by the time 2013 rolled around, I was all in. That was like my main focus of trading. And the thing that was good there was that arena was way less competitive than like the futures markets, which were just hyper competitive, has the best, algorithms and Wall Street firms in that market, where there were literally zero professionals trading Bitcoin at that time. So it went from like struggling and just grinding it out and having some ups, some downs, to all of a sudden I felt like Michael Jordan playing against a bunch of middle school kids. And it was just like shooting fish in a barrel. So.
Yeah, because I remember when I met you, you were trading the futures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you switched into Bitcoin, and then we were hanging out because I met you in Vegas, and then we kept in contact, and then you came to Thailand.
Yep.
And then we were hanging out there for a while, and then that was when you were writing your book, right? And at the time, I was just like, Bitcoin, like I wasn't even considering it. I don't know what came over me at the time, but I knew you were writing a book on it, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The whole point of the book, this was like 2015 after the first bubble, and Bitcoin was back to like 150, 200 bucks. I wrote the book really to convince all my Wall Street buddies that, hey, this thing is legit. It's not going anywhere, and you can make a shit ton of money trading it. Because at that time, everybody I knew was laughing at me like, Chris, why are you jumping ship on futures and going to Bitcoin? Like, what is this scammy little thing? So I wrote the book with those people in mind. Like, here's why this is going to be huge, and here's why you don't want to sleep on this. And yeah, I guess it worked out okay.
I tell my friend Jabril, you know Jabril, right?
Oh yeah.
I tell him this story, and he was like, bro, this is like one of the most painful stories ever. We all got a story, like he's got a story as well, but like, it's a painful story, but it's just what happened. I had to make peace with that.
What, the fact that
I knew you and I wasn't even paying attention to it that much.
I mean, look, you were focused on your thing. We all do that, right? And that's another thing about like trading and investing is there's always woulda, coulda, shoulda, past regrets, right? There's always something we could have done differently. But the key is just to like look at the past and go, oh, okay. So it's easy to kind of pass up opportunities going forward. How do I stay hyper vigilant and keep an open mind? Because that's really where like world-class investors make the bulk of their money, is seeing trends early before the mass majority of people figure it out. But you almost have to be a little weird to spot those things, right? Because they're not popular. And I think that's a skill set that has to be developed, and that's what I think I focus most of my days on.
Yeah, because your strategy of trading, I mean, as I'm talking, I'm like, wow, there's so much stuff we could talk about. Yeah. But like, we're going to get into everything. But your strategy of trading is not to take many trades, like not to overtrade, right? Yeah. It's to take, you can make life-changing money on just like 3-4 trades, right?
Yeah.
If you take your time with it.
Absolutely. So back in the day, like whenever I first got started trading, day trading was a profession where, they had trading floors and people that made a full-time income from day trading, sitting down there, right? We've all seen it in the movies, and it's portrayed as like these crazy trading desks. You're in and out, you're in and out. Nowadays, the markets are so efficient, those careers have gone away, and there's plenty of data that shows that almost all day traders lose money. Now, there's a lot of bullshit online. There's a lot of people claiming you can get rich day trading. But what day trading actually is the act of like going in and buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. It's so much harder to make money that way than it is swing trading or position trading. Basically riding trends and riding a position for several weeks or months. That you're just going to do so much better being patient and looking for those longer term trades than trying to scalp here or there.
Interesting, because there's a lot of day traders that make a lot of money, but they're seasoned. Like we know a mutual buddy of ours. He's a day trader. I think he's a day trader. I'm not sure, but
that's the thing. A lot of people that used to day trade have started to elongate their hold times. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are some people still making money day trading, but I mean, there's been so many studies, academic studies that prove that almost all day traders today lose money. It didn't used to be that way, but I would just encourage anybody that wants to get in the markets, do less. My motto is actually trade less, profit more. And trading is not a thing where you can go in and expect a consistent like daily profit goal or like a daily paycheck that's reliable. Profits come in bulks. You know, I've had some months where I've made more in 1 month than the prior 10 years, right? Like it's very chunky. You want to have the right strategy in the right market, and be able to execute it properly, right? And it's really hard to do that day in and day out.
Yeah, and it's also stressful too, huh? Like so much stress. Like, I mean, you're looking better every year I see you, man. Like,
Thanks, man.
You're just chilling out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it helps to, you know, the longer my position times become and the less I do, the more money I make and the better I feel and the less stress I have. You know?
And that's a skill set that you teach, obviously, inside your Skill Incubator company, right?
Yes, yeah. So we have a community of a lot of people that have done really, really well in crypto over the past decade. Yeah, and a lot of people that actually came from the futures markets over to crypto with me. So, yeah.
So you're just solely in crypto?
So no. So most of my focus on active trading is in crypto, but I don't have more than, at any given time, like I don't have any more than like a third of my net worth in crypto. I actually have larger position sizes in the stock market and in private equity or venture capital positions. So I do a mixture of passive trading and investing through the stock market and just, you know, ETFs and different funds, tax advantaged funds. And then I also have like private investment. So like, for example, I invest in a firm that hires some of the best PhD and mathematicians and builds algorithms to trade the futures market. So I get to leverage that, right? Instead of me trying to go in and trade the futures markets, I just outsourced it to the people that are best at it, right? And I also invest in startups and other just private investment rounds.
What is the reason for only having a third of your net worth in crypto?
Because it's volatile as shit. You know, think about it like this. Like at the height of the market, let's say somebody has a $10 million Bitcoin position, right? And Bitcoin historically has 85 to 90% drawdowns. So just imagine you're like, okay, at the height of the market, woo, I got $10 million worth of Bitcoin in the bank, and you don't sell, and say that's like 95% of your net worth is all tied up in Bitcoin. Can you, and this is kind of a hypothetical question, but can you be comfortable drawing that from 10 million down to 1 million, 1 or 2 million? Would you be able to sleep good at night? Or would you be waking up, checking your phone obsessively, going, holy shit, I can't believe I had 10 million, now I only have 1 million or 2 million, right? What would you say to that? Would you be comfortable having an 80 or a 90% drawdown in your total net worth?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I've had that happen to me. Like I was explaining to you before, and I met you a few weeks ago actually. I made a massive mistake. But this is another thing that I wanted to touch on about losing. Right? It's like I made a massive mistake. But I knew that what you just said, but I did that. you know, like
you knew rationally that you don't want to go through that, but your actions led you to go that direction anyway, right?
Right.
That is why I teach trading and investing, is more so to get people to do what they know they should do, because the mental side of this game is so damn hard. And you know, we talk to people all the time that are like, I knew rationally not to overtrade, or I knew not to do this. How do you get yourself to actually take the right decisions and the right actions? And it's a very difficult thing, and that's why most traders actually underperform the markets or lose money over long periods of time. Yeah,
so what are the mental hacks, solutions, I guess you can say, for someone who's listening, who's like, how do I stop doing that?
Yeah, so I would recommend 2 books. Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. It teaches you why your brain operates the way it does and why people inherently know buy low, sell high, right? A lot of my videos, I say very simple things. I'm like, look, here's statistically the best time to buy Bitcoin, right? And here's the best time to sell. And then people will troll in the comments, oh, Chris, everybody knows buy low, sell high. Yeah, but why do 90-something% of people, even though they know what they should do, they can't get themselves to actually do it? That's what that book explains, is the why behind your brain operates that way. And then the second book is The Mental Game of Trading by Jared Tendler. And that is like, once you know how your brain works, then that's the practical application of like what to do to actually fix your brain or reprogram it in a way that's actually going to serve you in the markets. And then from there, then you can develop strategy. But if your mind ain't right, it's a moot point.
Yeah, and I remember speaking to one guy, and he was like, dude, just do the opposite. Like, just whenever you feel like you want to buy more, you should sell. And I said, mate, that is like so simple. Yeah. But when it comes to it, and I'm sitting on my computer, like it's a whole other thing.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. Most people are not wired to be good market participants, right? Like most people, they want confirmation. They want to know that what they're doing is accepted by the herd, and so they go out there and they look at CNBC or they listen to some guy's opinion about when to buy and sell. But the most profitable people do the opposite of that. They do the opposite of what the herd's doing.
Yeah. And also just knowing that there's always another trade.
Yes.
That was something that you shared, and I'm like, wow, it's so simple. Like again, you said most of your advice is very simple, but it's like just having that confidence that, okay, this is not the only trade. Yeah. Like there's going to be another one.
Yeah, the markets aren't going anywhere. Right. If anything, they're becoming more accessible and there's more opportunity day by day. So I say the rule number one is don't do anything that's going to permanently take you out of the game. Don't bet all your portfolio on some shit coin, or don't go into some highly leveraged DeFi product that if it does blow up, you're broke, right? If you avoid doing those things, you're going to be okay. And even if you do that, even if you do blow out your account, you can always go hustle, get more capital, and then not do that again, right? So, drawdowns are a part of it. Losing money is a part of being in the markets, but it's not repeating mistakes that will determine if you make it or not.
Yeah. So you keep a third of your net worth in crypto?
Well, it ranges. I'm using that as like an average.
Just your trading money that you have, not your whole net worth.
It's anywhere. It's been as low as like 10 or 15%, and as high as 50%. It depends on where we are in the grand market cycles, and also what the other markets are doing and how I'm allocating capital. Yeah, but I don't feel comfortable ever having more than half of my net worth in Bitcoin. That's even at the height of the markets. I'm like selling to try to minimize positions because I'm always backing out the math. I'm like, what if I wake up tomorrow and crypto's down 80%? Would I be comfortable with that position? If the answer is no, then I'm too big, and then I need to scale down.
But if it's a third, let's say it's a third, right? Yeah. Like 30%, 33%, and there is an 80% drawdown. You're still in that position, you're not worried?
Well, there's different capital buckets that I have. So I have like an active trading capital bucket, which is basically US dollars that is mostly USD unless I'm in a swing trade, which is anywhere from a few weeks to a few months. Then I have my cold storage capital bucket, which is Bitcoin that I buy during bear markets. I put on a hardware wallet and I bury it somewhere, and that I don't ever sell. I just accumulate that and build that position over time. And then I have my market cycle trades, which are like 1 to 2 year holds. So it really depends on how many trades I have open, what phase of the market cycle we're in. So that percentage can really, really vary.
So as you say that, I guess the question people would have is, why would you accumulate Bitcoin if it's not at the lowest point? So you said you have a bucket for accumulating Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
So why don't you just wait till Bitcoin hits its all-time low and then buy as much as you want then?
Well, that's what I try to do, right? So for that cold storage capital bucket, anytime Bitcoin falls by over 75 to 80%, that's when I start accumulating and putting that in cold storage. Yeah, and I've done that every market cycle since 2013.
So it sounds like that's your main strategy in crypto, is to accumulate more Bitcoin.
that's one strategy to build that capital bucket.
Right.
But I have two goals. I have a goal of actively trading altcoins, so basically all the other shitcoins that are out there. I trade those more actively. I don't really hold much of those in cold storage or for more than a year or two. Most of the time, I'm trading those with the goal of accumulating more fiat. So I'm trading Ethereum or insert whatever shitcoin that's out there with the goal of increasing my USD positions that I can cycle back into Bitcoin or the stock market or other private investments.
Ah, I see. Okay, so you're using that to fund all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And then, so with the stock market, how does that work? Because you mentioned you invest in the stock market, some stocks, and you have some heavier positions in those companies, and also private equity companies as well.
Yeah. So the stock side, my business partner Travis and Nikki, they manage the stock side of things. So Travis is one of the smartest guys I know. He helped grow a hedge fund from 100 million in assets to over $1 billion in assets. And while he was active at the hedge fund, they were one of the best performing hedge funds in the business. And I think they're still doing well, but he basically retired from that, went and worked at one of our buddies' startups, helped him scale the enterprise value of that business to well over $100 million. And then now I've pulled him into the Skill Incubator, and he's a mentor over there. Yeah. So his life is doing fundamental analysis on equities, on stocks, and him and Nikki kind of tag team the stock side together. So I get to focus on crypto, they focus on stocks.
And so they're giving you the intel on the best stocks to invest in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're doing the deep research, and Nikki's more of a technical trader, and then she combines her skill set with Travis's fundamental background, and together they're doing really well.
Mm. Yeah, so it sounds like you got an amazing dream team.
Yeah.
And it's so what do you speak to that? So is that required for massive success in the trading to have a team? To have a team?
I think trading solo is really, really difficult because you're limited by your own perspective, right? Like trading and investing is much easier if you have people to just bounce ideas off of, but also like show you kind of your blind spots or your weak points. Like, hey, you know, I've noticed you've done this on the past couple of trades. You know, have you thought of maybe doing it this way? Or like, I noticed that you went into tilt, you got real pissed when this market did this, or, you know, it's just a lot better to have other people that can kind of give you feedback or give you unique ways of looking at things.
Because otherwise you just kind of maybe repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Yeah,
exactly. It's easy to fall into a routine and not know your blind spots or not know a way to maybe view something from a different angle. And I think just having a community of traders, even if it's you and a buddy or whatever, that's why I think our community is so valuable, because we have a lot of really seasoned vets that have made millions. And to hear from those guys and ladies, I think is just invaluable.
So when you were starting out, you didn't have that though, right? Because you told your roommate that you were going to be a millionaire. Yep. But was he also trading at the time?
No, he was going to be a cop. And, I think he was at the police academy at the time. And I had a little nest egg and that I was basically living off of while I was trading and building a software business. And that's another thing I would say is like it's really tough to trade if you don't have non-market related income. Like it's always nice to have income that comes in that you don't have to trade for. It just relieves the stress, and then that can lead to like over trading. If you're like, oh shit, I gotta meet my bills. You know, if you can have another source of income to relieve the pressure of that, you're gonna make way better decisions in the markets.
Because you're not coming from a place of fear.
Right.
Like I need this to work.
Yeah, because the best trades come whenever you don't force them, right? It's like when the market offers you great opportunity, you take it. But if you go in and you're like, shit, I need to make $500 a day every day, or I'm not going to be able to pay my bills, trading is a terrible way to try to do that.
Yeah, so speak to that, like the crazy stories you've seen, of people that do that. You must have seen a lot of people do that over the years. Yeah,
I mean, I get emails and DMs all the time from people that are like, Chris, I watched your video. I did exactly what you say not to do. You know, over trading is probably the main thing that people lose money in. The other is just not quantifying or understanding the risks. Like in the last crypto cycle, it was driven by DeFi and NFTs. And a lot of people bought, they spent 6 or 7 figures on these JPEGs, not understanding how volatile and fickle that market can really be. And then also going into DeFi and hearing like, oh, I can make 20% a year yield over here, or 30 or 40% a year over here. There's no such thing as free yield. And if you don't understand the risk on an investment and you don't cap your downside, that's where people suffer really bad losses. And so any trade or investment opportunity that I go into, I always assume it's going to fail. And I say, what is the worst case scenario? How much money could I lose on this? And how can I minimize either the probabilities of that happening or the percentage that's going to be permanent capital loss, right? So I try to cap the downside, and once I've quantified the risk on a trade or an investment in a startup or whatever, then I weigh, do I want to invest in this at all? And if I do, how do I size it? How do I size the investment in a way that I'm not going to regret it if it fails?
Wow, so it's almost like how to make a decision, how to make a financial decision the right way. Because what most people do, and this is what I've done in the past, is I've just looked at the upside.
Yeah.
And that's like the kind of colored, like we've got these lights in the background, the blue lights, like I'm looking at the world through these blue lights of like the upside. Yeah. That's all I see is the upside.
Yeah.
I don't see the downside because I'm not looking for it.
Yep.
And so, but that's obviously trained to do that. That's not how we naturally are, right?
Right.
You mentioned those 2 books earlier.
Yeah, I mean, most people are not programmed to think that way.
Yeah.
You've got to learn it, then you've got to internalize that as a skill set and practice it over and over and over. But it goes into different areas of life too. Like you can apply that mental model to business or a relationship or whatever. Just always think about the downside first and then say, okay, what are the probabilities I think this is going to win? What is the upside? You want to look at that, but you don't want to get overly focused on it. So capping risk is the biggest thing.
So I was thinking about this recently because I have a friend who he thinks like you do. Like you're a critical thinker, right? You think a lot about things before you do them. I'm guessing.
Try to, yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, I make emotional, stupid decisions as well. But yeah, in the markets, I try to approach it with a framework, yeah. Right.
And for me, I'm a guy that I'll just do things without thinking most of the time. Like I'm good at just taking action. And I posted something on this is related, by the way. I posted something on my Instagram, and I said, no, actually, I didn't say it. Henry Ford said it. He said, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is why so few engage in it. Yeah. And then he replied to me, and he said, action, not thinking. And I was thinking about that, and from his frame of reference, he thinks a lot. He's a very good thinker. So for him, I can see why action would be more like the thing that he needs to focus on. Whereas me, I'm aware that I need to focus on thinking more than taking action because I don't think enough. So for example, coming back to trading, like in a trade, I don't think enough about the criteria that you have, the mental models that you have that you apply to the risk management, right? And also the emotion there of greed is present as well, which I guess is influencing my decision making because I'm just looking at it through the upside because the greed is there.
Right.
Like I could make so much,
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get caught up in, right? Like fear and greed are the drivers of price, right? That's why prices go up and down is because of human emotion. And fear is a much more powerful emotion, and that's why the market takes the stairs up and then the elevator down, because when mass fear hits, everybody rushes for the exit at the same time, and that's what causes those collapses quickly. But yeah, greed can also entice you into highly risky things. But yeah, it's interesting what you said about thinking versus action, right? Like in business, the idea is more action, right? Like, sales funnel, more leads, more eyeballs, more offers, more is better, right? And push your will on whatever you're trying to do, right? More action. That's oftentimes in business a better approach. In the markets, it's like the opposite though. It's like less is more. Don't try to force things. Those are two very different skill sets, like building a business and investing. That's why, a lot of the worst traders that I see are successful entrepreneurs, lawyers, and managers of people, right? Like people that are used to managing big teams, they're used to like pushing their will on people and getting response. Lawyers, influencing and pushing in their will on a situation. Entrepreneurs, very driven. But that attitude in the markets can get you in a lot of trouble. The best people that I've seen in the markets are like pilots, like firemen, people that are used to being in high stress situations and staying calm under pressure and knowing that they can't change the situation, right? If there's a raging fire, yeah, they can put it out with water, but they can't directly like just rush in and do whatever they want. They have to assess risk, right? And that those attitudes and mental models work way better in the markets.
I never thought about that. Yeah, assessing risk, like the different jobs that you can do that assess risk. Like, yeah, if you're a pilot, you have to think about the downside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, what is the like? You spoke about identifying opportunities, and you identified the Bitcoin opportunity very early, right? And everyone thought you were crazy. I've seen your post on Twitter. Like everyone was like, "Dude, this Chris guy." Like, and so you had honed that skill of finding opportunities prior to that, which is why you were able to identify it, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've always been entrepreneurial since high school, and always, studying investing and the best investors that are out there. And yeah, that's kind of the big thing, right? Is just always looking for what's going to be huge in the future and what is nobody paying attention to, and how can you get involved in a meaningful way early. But you also have to be right? Like you can be early to a big idea that doesn't pan out, and then you lose money. That's also part of investing.
Yeah. So why do you think you were right? Like, what was the influences that you had at the time that was like, this is going to be big?
Yeah. I mean, just the situation of like money in current society, right? Like, what is money? I was thinking a lot about that, and like, what are the properties of money, and like, what is the next evolution of money? And I thought Bitcoin had a really good shot at giving the current fiat system a run for its money, right? And it's not perfect, but this experiment has been going on for over a decade now, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow and permeate through society, even after half a dozen bubbles in price, right? Like, it's just, you can't kill it. It's the honey badger, right? And so I'm optimistic on the future of Bitcoin and the future of just redefining what money is and how it works in society.
As you say that, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, all right, you got in at what, $100, let's say, $150, right?
Sure, yeah.
You've made a lot of money with Bitcoin, right? So the question is, are you, because a lot of people that I personally have known, they don't put themselves out there anymore because of the fact that they've made so much money. They don't want to be known. Yeah. So how do you deal with that?
There have been several times over the past like 5 or 6 years that I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to close everything down, get rid of my YouTube channel. Right now, everybody knows about like the impersonation scams on Instagram. People doing that to everybody now. But I was one of the first guys that actually started happening to, because I was early in crypto, and they were like, oh, it's easy to scam people out of crypto. So I've been dealing with the impersonation scams for a long time. Also just hackers and just like bad people, right? So I'm like, why do I do this, right? So I've questioned it several times. And the answer always comes back to like impact. Like I can make money on my own and go off and just be kind of a hermit. But to me, that's very unfulfilling. And like, I just love having a community of investors and like helping other people. I just get really excited when I get that message. Hey, Chris, I'm not going to say this publicly, but I was working a shit job. Now I've got X million in the bank. Like, thank you so much. Like, knowing that I have a real impact on people's lives really keeps me motivated. And if it wasn't for that, yeah, I'd say, screw it. I don't want to be known by anybody.
Yeah, so I guess that answers the question of why you're doing this then, right? Because this is adding to that fulfillment bucket, right? It's like this particular piece of content could make someone millions. Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. I hope so, or at least avoid a scam, or avoid blowing up their account or getting rug pulled, or like I'm pretty vocal about a lot of the scams in the crypto community as well. And if I can just save someone from experiencing pain and maintaining their current wealth, even if they don't become a millionaire in 6 months, like to me, that's also a win.
So what is your message to people then? Like they join your world, they come into Skill Incubator. Is there a promise that you're promising people, or is it just like, hey, you're going to learn these skills, or what is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantees in the market, right? Yeah. Like I'm never going to say, yeah, join our community and you're going to become a millionaire in a year. Like the bigger thing is like you're going to develop the skill set and the knowledge of how to quantify risk, how to avoid scams, and if you put yourself in the right place at the right time and you have that skill set, the odds of you making life-changing wealth are way better than if you just swing for the fences or follow the crowd, right? That's really what we're doing, is like really trying to teach the mindset and the skill set that's going to serve somebody over decades, not just like a get-rich-quick thing.
Yeah. And as you say that, earlier you were saying about how different types of entrepreneurs do better or do worse in the markets.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the personality type that is predisposed to do better in the markets just from the get-go.
Right.
So then someone like who's a successful entrepreneur who said notoriously they don't do that well in the markets, they have a lot more work to do to just be at the same level as like the fireman or the pilot, right?
Possibly. I mean, it depends on how open they are to learning, right? And changing their mindset. That's why I always tell people, like, if you're getting into the markets, read those 2 books that I mentioned earlier. Forget strategy, forget software, forget all that for a minute and learn how your brain works. And if you start with that first, when you learn strategy and the sexy part of trading, the techniques and the tools and all that stuff, it's going to serve you better. So yeah, if somebody is a high-powered attorney or something and they're like, yeah, I've suffered in the markets before, like you can fix that, right? You just have to be coachable and open to change.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, the Oprah Winfrey, for example, I heard someone say this and they said, if Oprah Winfrey was a trader, like she wouldn't have succeeded. Someone said this. Actually, no, it was a wealth dynamics test. I'm not sure if you.
Yeah, I took that a long time ago.
Yeah, I took that like last week. Actually.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's fresh in my brain. And
Yeah,
he was like, yeah, imagine if Oprah Winfrey, because I actually had the same profile as her.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Go me.
Yes.
But
crushing it.
thanks. And so if she went into trading, his argument was that she wouldn't have done well because it doesn't fit her personality.
Yeah.
So do you think that's true for people? Like, do you think, like, is there, because the way I think about it is if I just put in the work, then I'll be able to achieve what I want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
But is there an argument for, okay, that's just not your personality?
Man, I'm just kind of split on that. I think people are predisposed to be certain ways and have certain strengths and weaknesses. But I think if, anybody can improve one area of their lives or, like the markets and trading and investing, that's a skill set that I think anybody can learn. I think 5 to 10% of people are probably predisposed to being really good at it. And then the rest of us have to learn. Like, for example, I'm a very impatient person. And I used to be like real hot-headed and like quick to anger. And I had to work my ass off for years to rein that in, get it under control, and just learn how patience serves better in the markets, right? I went from hyperactive day trading to longer term investing and waiting for trends to develop and being more patient, and my net worth just went through the roof when I did that, right? So I had to learn that and teach myself that and practice for years and years and years. So I'm not predisposed to be a great investor. I just really, really wanted to become one. And it's a work in progress every day. Like I never feel like I've arrived or I'm some grand master of the markets, right? The second you start believing that bullshit, you're going to have a huge loss. So.
And is that speaking from experience?
Yeah. I mean, I made mistakes, but I've never blown out an account or had a crippling loss that I felt like I could never come back from because I quantify risk, right? And I learned very early in high school that the markets are not an easy casino. Like if you treat it like that, you're going to get your ass whipped. And so I got humbled very early on, which I think was good because another thing I see, especially in crypto, is somebody will take a trade or buy some shitcoin. It'll go up 1,000x. They'll feel like a genius. They're like, oh man, look at all this money I made. And they'll think it's that easy every time. And then all of a sudden, their net worth went up and then it went right back to where it was or even lower.
Yeah, that happens a lot. As you're saying that, it's hitting me. I'm like, yeah, that was me. I've made all those mistakes.
Yeah.
But I guess it's in the timeline relationship to yourself. It's like you've been doing it for 21 years, and I just got started last year. So, well, actually, no, I've been in crypto since 2018.
Okay.
2017, I believe.
Nice.
But I had the biggest loss I've had last year, and that was my first real loss.
Yeah.
So I guess it was a similar thing to when you were at high school when you had your first loss.
Yeah.
You learned from that.
Yep. I mean, everybody does it, right? Like, I think getting humbled in the markets it's a part of the process. It's like paying your dues, right? Paying your tuition to the markets, and as long as you can come back with fresh eyes and say, okay, I'm not going to make those mistakes again, then you'll make it
because
through.
To your point, have you met anyone who's made millions in the markets who's never lost lots of money?
Who's never lost a lot of money? Yeah, I've met people that were smart. They knew they either got lucky or they were at the right place in the right time. They made the right decisions, and then they pulled their chips out, right? Like, I do that in crypto. Like, whenever I trade these altcoins, I approach it knowing that 99% of this shit is going to zero in the future. Like, think of that. Out of the 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 or more cryptocurrencies that are out there now, or DeFi projects or whatever, 90-something% of them will not exist in the next 5 to 10 years. So whenever I go into the markets, I approach it from that mindset. So what do? You take shorter term trades. You pull capital out. I don't just keep all of my net worth in Bitcoin, right? Like we talked about. I trade and I pull money out. I take fiat currency and I go buy real estate with it, or I invest in the stock market, or I invest in another startup that's not crypto related. So I think pulling capital out is really smart because it's good for your mental game, your well-being. Why do we trade in the first place? To improve the quality of our lives, right? So people that just build their account up just for like the ego of being able to look at their portfolio value, those are the ones that end up giving a lot of it back.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I remember, my account was up like, 15x. My portfolio was up 15x. And I was looking at my friend. I was like, bro, look at this shit, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, bro, you're not going to take some out? I was like, no, man, leave that here. It's going to go up.
Yeah. Hey, man, we've all been there. And it's cool that you'll talk about that publicly, right? Like, a lot of people want to brag about their wins publicly, but it's the losses that you actually learn shit from and that are valuable. But a lot of people want to sweep that under the rug and hide from it. But shine a light on it, man, and then you won't do it again.
So there's a book back there, Brene Brown. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
So she talks
I played
about
pickleball with her, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah. Anyway.
So she talks about shame, right?
Yeah.
Were you talking about any of her work as you were
No,
afterwards?
no. I didn't even mention like that I knew her. It was like a big group thing. And
right.
I was like, oh shit, let's play pickleball. Yeah. So.
But she talks about shame and how shame's favorite food is secrecy. So the shame that a loss brings, it becomes worse when you don't talk about it, right?
Right.
And so if I didn't share that, then I would be continuously beating myself up about it.
Yeah.
And I'd just be, the shame, I think that's a big thing that men struggle with in general. But the shame around losing so much, like, it's embarrassing to admit that. Especially to yourself. Like, I'm friends with you. And to admit that to you, I had so much shame around that, just sharing.
Well, it's huge that you brought it up, man. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I mean, so Nikki runs these monthly mental mindset meetups through Zoom where people come on and they basically admit like mistakes they've made, and like you can see the relief that people have when they just like shine a light on the problem, and it takes the shame away from it.
And just knowing that there's always another trade, and it's okay. Like it's having that faith in the markets, and that comes from the skill set, right? Because if you don't have that skill set, then you could make that mistake again because you don't know what you're doing. Yeah,
it's just the realization that like the markets aren't going anywhere, right? Like some people are like, oh man, I missed the Bitcoin boom. Damn, Chris, you got lucky. I'm like, well, it's a little bit more than lucky. I was right timing, but I sought that out. The second thing is like there's something else coming, right? There's a startup out there, there's a stock, there's a crypto, there's something that's gonna have 1,000x returns in the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years, whatever, right? That's the exciting part of investing, is there's always something else coming down the road. So just stay in the game.
Yeah. How do you, because you invest in companies too, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you find, what's your strategy for investing in a company? Like, what do you look for? What's your criteria?
Oh man, I don't really have a framework for like. Are you talking about like startups?
Yeah, specifically, yeah.
I am extremely conservative. So like I was I joined a couple of angel investor meetup groups like probably 10 years ago. That's actually where I met Travis. Was in Austin. There was a couple angel investor meetups, and like Travis and I were the youngest guys by like 20 years. So we became fast friends there. But I watched like probably 200 to 300 pitches before I invested in any companies. Just because I went in with the assumption that I was going to lose all my money in startup investing, because a lot of people do. So I was very, very conservative, and I've only made a few really strategic investments. And so far, I haven't lost on any of them. I've actually gotten a net return on my startup portfolio. Awesome. Which is kind of rare. Like a lot of people do lose money in startup investing. And so I think I'm just like really conservative, and I just look for something that I believe is going to be a home run. And that's not really the way a lot of angel investors do it. A lot of people just cut 50 to 100 checks. Like they're doing the shotgun approach. I'm doing less investments, bigger size for me, bigger bets, higher probability I'm going to lose. But if I'm right, I get a bigger return. So I don't know. I've just been right more than I've been wrong.
And do you spend a lot more time than those people who are doing the shotgun approach? You spend a lot more due diligence time?
No. I have a filter where most startups go in the no pile, and the ones that are home runs I'll do due diligence on, or I think are going to be home runs I do the due diligence on. But I think I actually do less work because I do filter so much stuff out.
So I'm thinking about the lens at which you view the world, because you're clearly very good at spotting opportunities. So if someone's listening and they want to have the same skill set as you, looking at something like, all right, there's the gaps in the market. Okay, this company's providing this service, which is actually fulfilling that gap in the market. Yeah. And okay, so that's going to work. And this guy, the founder is, he's smart. He has drive, and he's the boss. And so how do they cultivate that skill set of being able to identify opportunities? I think
it's keep it simple, right? Like look for problems and look for people that are solving big problems. And I don't know. I guess like there's been so many books written on how to do due diligence on a company and a team and all this technical stuff, right? I just look for the obvious problems that are getting solved. And then I asked, do I understand this? Do I really get it? Can they explain it in one or two sentences? Do I trust the founders, right? I just keep it real simple like that. And obviously you've got to do the due diligence on the financial side, right? And that has to make sense. But a lot of times you're really just betting on the horse, right? Like the founder and the problem they're solving. It's very simple. So do you do any background checks then? Because if you're betting on the person, then you need to, that brings in a whole nother dimension of like people skills and how knowing how to read people and stuff. Like how is this person being trustworthy right now? Like, can I trust this person? This is where I think networks come in, like angel investor networks, where, if you have a couple hundred people in a group, you're going to have area expertise. You're going to have a guy that raises his hand and goes, I know a lot about that type of software business, or I know this founder and his history, or I have expertise in the way they're trying to raise this round, right? So that's where like the combination of a lot of really smart people can help. And so I lean a lot on that, like in these public rounds, we'll call them, where it's not just, friends and family, where it's offered to a group. It's a lot easier to separate the bullshit from winners. Yeah, and bring that back to you and I. So let's say you're like, yo, Darko, this company, like I'm investing in this and this is gonna be good. Yeah. I'll be like, hell yeah, how much you want? Because it's the trust. The trust is there. It's already been built. So I can see how the network effect can really influence your decision making in that space as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, what is your favorite investment vehicle? Like favorite asset class?
Asset class, yes. See, my language is wrong.
Yeah. No. That's right. I'm just thinking like a category or like.
Right. Asset class.
For the past 10 years, I've just been so focused on crypto.
Yeah.
So I put Bitcoin in its own category, right? And then crypto, 99% of it is bullshit. I really hate what crypto has become. It's become a meme here, even in Bali, right? It's like all the crypto bros and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that is just gross. But I love Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I love what it stands for. I'm also a fan of publicly traded companies, stocks. Like a lot of people in crypto shit on stocks so much.
Yeah, they do,
And they're like, oh man, stocks are a scam. I'm like, explain to me how owning a portion or equity in a highly profitable company like Apple is a bad thing. Stocks have the longest history of creating the most wealth for people. Like way more than real estate even. Like stocks are the way to go if you want to build real wealth. But a lot of people, they dismiss it. And that's why it's such a huge part of my portfolio.
It's funny. Grant Cardone is like, no, stocks is not good. he's trying to get everyone to like buy his real estate.
Right. I mean, he's got an ulterior motive.
That's
right. That's another thing in the markets and investing. Don't trust anybody, dude. Especially if they're trying to sell you an idea. Like even when it comes to me with Bitcoin, right? I tell people this is why I believe in it, but like don't mortgage your house and go buy it. Like do your own research, right? And when it comes to people like Cardone, who's like invest in my private offering, right? I looked at his PPM, I looked at some of his deals, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely advantaging him financially. It's not the right move for me, but anytime he does content, he's got an ulterior motive, which is invest in my fund, right? So just go in knowing that when you listen to people.
Yeah, doing your due diligence is so important.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard because most people just want someone to spoon feed them the information,
right?
Rather than actually going to research themselves, because that's work.
Yeah. I mean, investing can be simple, but it's not easy. It does take work, right? And if you're not willing to do the work, you don't have to be an active investor or trader. You can just buy an S&P 500 fund or just buy Bitcoin and hold it long term, right? And then focus on what you're really good at. Not everybody has to be a wizard of the markets, right?
Yeah, and that's something that interests me personally because I'm not doing the trading stuff. And, I've met a few people in Bali, they do trading and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, you got to learn to read charts and stuff like that. And I can read charts a little bit, but I haven't fully committed to that.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that? Oh, this is going into another topic of like fulfillment and all this kind of stuff. And it's interesting because you were mentioning earlier that your fulfillment comes from your community. Sharing wins, other people sharing their wins with yourself and stuff like that. And yeah, a bit of the personality thing as well. Of like thinking, all right, well, I could learn trading, but then would that mean I'm sitting on my computer every day? Like, because the more I get better at it, the more I want to trade.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing, right? The obsession at the infancy period.
Yeah, for sure. And like, that's why I say like, you don't have to trade all day, every day to make a killing in the markets. Like less is more, right? Yeah. I mean, just to give you an example, like I have a morning routine where I open the charts, I check on everything, I look for opportunity. Some days that takes 5 or 10 minutes. Other days it's 2 or 3 hours. But it's not like an all-day thing. And yeah, trading by yourself can be a very lonely and depressing thing, right? The wins, who you going to celebrate with, the losses, who are you going to share that with and get feedback from. And it can be very unfulfilling if you don't have a purpose for it, right? That's why, again, like I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? So I do a mix of building a business and a community and also take the capital that I earn, my hustle income, and put that right back into the markets, right? So it's kind of like a machine. And I think a lot of people should do that, right? They should have hustle income that's not market related and then put it in the markets and just feed their wealth machine, right? Don't just look at the markets as your job. Unless you're managing a fund or, you're actually a professional. But most people aren't cut out for that.
Yeah, and having that wealth machine is really important as well.
Yeah.
So you have that wealth machine. So can you break down? I mean, you've touched on it, but you touched on real estate. We didn't quite go into that yet. But what does the wealth machine look like? Like, if you were to put it on the whiteboard, like what are the buckets?
Yeah. So step one is just cash flow maximization, right? Like every month, do what you can to maximize your cash flow. You can minimize expenses, right? Like just be mindful and try to minimize expenses, but that's not the way to get wealth. The way to get wealthy is build that monthly cash flow as much as you can. You know, it's brain dead simple, right? Get as much money coming in monthly. Minimize taxes as much as you can, because that is, for a lot of people, their biggest expense, even more so than their primary residence, right? It's like taxes. So optimize that. Spend time and effort on minimizing taxes, because that is worth doing. And then, decide what balance of active versus passive investor do you want to be, right? If you're like, look, I don't want to look at charts, I don't want to think about this shit at all, invest passively, and then just focus on maximizing monthly cash flow. If you're like, I do want to be active, I want to try to hyperdrive my wealth, then maybe 50-50, right? Say, I'm going to take some money, I'm going to be active with it, meaning I'm going to go invest in startups, or I'm going to trade crypto or trade stocks, right? And then just find that balance. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's different for everybody based on their risk tolerance.
So those three things are really important to start focusing on.
I mean, I think it's real simple, right? Get as much money coming in as possible, but keep as much of it too, right? Like, especially early in someone's life or career, if you want to really hyperdrive compounding, it's like, even if you can afford a Lambo, maybe take that couple $100,000 and put it in the markets instead, right? People that, make like vanity purchases typically end up regretting them. And I have actually a formula that I think about whenever it comes to a big purchase. Like Travis and I bought like a really badass boat like 5 or 6 years ago for wake surfing, and it was a 6-figure purchase, and we were like, is this worth it? And then we thought about like, what are the amount of like happy hours we're gonna get from it, and what's the cost, and what does that like hourly rate come out to be? And we were like, we'd pay that an hour to have this experience. And we ended up putting like 400 or 500 hours on that boat over the course of a few years. And looking back, it was like, it was absolutely worth every penny. But the opportunity cost way to look at it is like, say a car is like $100,000, right? It's like, is that car worth $100,000 to you? The way to look at that is say, if I invest this over the next decade or two, I'm going to 5x this money, right? Just come up with a big round number. Is this car worth $500,000? Or would you rather have $500,000 in the future than this car today? So there's that way to really balance opportunity cost.
Yeah, so you're really breaking it down, like the happiness in the hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like happy points is what we call them. Because I remember being on the boat so many times and being like, man, this is amazing. Is this a vanity purchase? Is it a luxury purchase? Yeah. But I'd much rather have this boat than a Lambo, because if I go get a Lambo, how much fun am I really going to have? I can have one other person in there with me, and I don't really like driving around a lot, but I like wake surfing, and I like drinking beer on a boat with 10 or 15 friends. Like, that's pretty cool. And we did that for a long time and many, many hours, and looking at it, it was like, that was worth it. So you just got to figure out, what do you place value in?
Yeah, good question to ponder, right?
Yeah.
What do you place value in? And to the car example, that's the long-term mindset, like the instant gratification versus delayed gratification, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to get 500K, but that's in a few years, where I could spend 100K now. Right.
And have the car. Right.
And
so just balance it. Yeah. Like, no, I choose the car now, and I'll sacrifice the 500K in the future. Yeah, that's fine. As long as you're conscious about it, right? If you just like, no, I'm going into debt, and like you're just making really stupid decisions, that's the wrong way to go about it.
So I want to talk about time horizons as we're talking about that, because this is something that I've been made aware of just in the last few months, actually going to Thailand and realizing that, wow, like I don't actually think in long-term time horizons. And I guess that's a combination of not being really focused on that, and just focusing on the step today. Like we were talking about earlier about the steps that you got to take, and when you're traveling and stuff, and you just got to look in front of you. But then I think about 5 years in the future. Okay, how am I going to leverage this money that I'm making to make me more money? So, you know, it's like what you said. So first of all, it's increasing the cash flow, then it's keeping it, right, minimizing taxes, and then it's multiplying it if you want to do passive or active investing.
Yep.
So I wasn't thinking about keeping it or multiplying it. I was just thinking about how much am I making every day in the short-term mindset. So you have a long-term mindset, of course, because that's how you think, right?
Well, I think you want to do both, right? Like long-term strategy,
yes,
right? So strategize long-term, and then like every day you're focusing on the short-term, right? You're in the trenches day to day, but say maybe once a month or once a quarter you want to sit down and like evaluate, where am I, what are my long-term goals, you know, and assess, you know, your cash flow and things like that, and allocating that capital the right way. And yeah, it's just a constant, I guess, ebb and flow of long-term thinking and short-term action.
And is it long-term thinking for you in a year, or is it you think in 5-year increments or 10 years?
I guess I think in all of them, right? Like I think, yeah, okay, what net worth do I want to have when I'm 65? I don't put too much thought into stuff like that, right? It's probably more 5 or 10 year time horizons. Like, you know, what can I do to double, triple, or more my net worth year over year or every 5 years? Right.
Just even that language, like to someone who's listening and they don't really speak in that language, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of money, but they don't use this language when they talk about money. So they don't talk they don't ever use the word. Like I mean, since knowing you, I've obviously used this language, but net worth has never been like a thing from where I'm from. Like net worth, like, what? You know?
It's true. I mean, look, I have a friend in Austin. He's a very successful entrepreneur worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he is mostly in cash.
Wow.
Like hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, what are you talking about? And then I ran some like basic inflation numbers on cash. I'm like, do you know how many millions of dollars a year you're lighting on fire by not being invested? And he's an entrepreneur. He's focused on his business and he's crushing it. He doesn't think about the wealth side of things, right? So yeah, a lot of people don't use that language or operate this way, but that's why I'm trying to teach more people, right? Because I'm like, dude, I can save you a ton of money. Like, just get invested in these very simple ways and your net worth will look like this in 10 years instead of this.
Yeah, there's a book, on that note, there's a book called Simple Path to Wealth.
Yeah.
You've probably heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you about this off camera before, and I remember watching a Google talk of his, and he said, the lady asked him, if you had $100 million, what would you do with it? And he said, I'd put it into VTSAX, the index fund, Vanguard. And that's a really interesting answer to me. So adding to that, what would be your advice to that guy? Would you just, if he doesn't want to actively invest, is that good advice to then be a passive investor and just putting your money in an index fund?
Yeah. So there's no right or wrong answer, right?
Okay.
Like that's the cool thing about the markets is like within the rules of the law, you can make any decisions that you want, right? You can invest in a S&P 500 fund or something similar, or you could invest in high risk crypto projects or anything in between. My advice to him was like, look, just get some equities and like get invested maybe in some real estate, like do something that's going to at least keep up with the pace of inflation. Because if you're in cash, you're basically lighting like 3% of that cash a year on fire. So I try not to keep more than like 3 years worth of emergency expenses in cash. That's kind of my thing. Anything above that, I want invested in something. And so there's no right or wrong answer for what asset class, or it's all about timing too, right? Like today is we're in October 2022. The right answer today is probably going to be different than 6 months from now, right? So just get invested in something.
Yeah. That actually speaks to the importance of investing because of inflation. Yeah. Because right now inflation is what is it right now? Was it 8%? It's 8%, right?
Yeah, it depends on what number you're looking at, right? The official, in the U.S., the official numbers were like 8%. And that is crazy, right? We basically went from like effectively no inflation to really high inflation like that because of what happened with COVID. Long story short, the U.S. government printed trillions of dollars stimulated the economy, things have spiraled out of control, and now prices are just rising. And the scary thing about inflation is that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once there's inklings of inflation, it kind of feeds on itself, because if a restaurant owner's like, the cost of my food is going up, I have to raise prices, and then you have to raise your employee salaries, and then it kind of feeds from there. So when people know things are more expensive at the restaurant, they go to their boss and say, hey, I need a raise to keep up with inflation. And that's why it's kind of a fight to keep it under control. And yeah, for somebody that has a lot of cash, you're basically losing purchasing power every year. If it's sitting in dollars or euros or yen or whatever, you're actually able to buy less over time with that. So the whole goal with investing is to get a return that outpaces inflation, right? And so instead of losing 3, 5, 10% a year, if you can make 10, 20, 30% a year, you're going to be able to buy more in the future than less. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, it's a nice explanation for people that don't understand what inflation is and what it does and why it's good to get your money out of the banks.
Yeah.
But I like actually, this was an epiphany for me. I remember messaging you about this because I saw on your story a few years ago, and you said how you only have 3 years maximum of expenses in cash.
Yeah.
All the rest is invested.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. That's why, like, that's part of the machine, right? Like, get the cash flow as high as I can, funnel it into the machine, and just trust that the machine's going to work over time, right? And, like, I'll have a business account that, maybe that doesn't count towards my personal finances, right? So businesses are kind of different, but personal cash, like, I think it just doesn't make sense to keep a whole lot of it unless you are going to make a big purchase, Why let it just erode?
And then even then, if you're making a big purchase, you just liquidate some assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what I try to do is, if I'm like, okay, I want to buy, like, this is what I did. I wanted to buy a ranch, right? My dream house. It's like, all right, I need a big trade. So I waited, and then had a big Ethereum trade, which basically paid for my dream house, right? So I try to do something that's going to increase that cash flow instead of having to liquidate other things. So I'll put that on the back burner and wait, and then when I get that reward of a big trade, I'll take the profits and then buy something. Right.
And so when you're doing that trade, do you trade with leverage on your swing trades?
Nope.
Okay.
No. I could use some leverage. I don't need to, and I think leverage is really, really dangerous, especially in crypto. Heard from thousands of people that have just been liquidated on these shitty futures exchanges. There's flash crashes. There's a lot that can go wrong technically when you're using leverage, and a lot of people don't know how to do the math to not get liquidated. A lot of people just go in starry-eyed or listening to some day trading guru that's like, yeah, you can go out there and day trade on these futures exchanges and turn 100 into 1 million in a month. Almost all of those people lose money. Almost every single one. You're going to hear the survivorship bias. You're going to hear about the one guy that made it, but you're going to miss the tens of thousands of people that lost everything.
Yeah, so adding to that, what are the Chris Dunn rules to not get scammed in the markets?
Oh, shit, man. Be skeptical of everybody and everything. And the markets are a competition, right? You have to develop adversarial thinking, right? Not kumbaya, we're all in this together thinking. That's good for business and life, right? It's important to have that in life. But in the markets, that's not how things work. And if you go in with a different mindset, you're going to be the prey, right? So go in with adversarial thinking and be really skeptical. Start there, right? Start with a skeptic's mind and say, how could this fail? Focus on the downside, right? It sounds negative, but it's really not. It's like focus on what you could lose and cap that, and then everything else will, trust the process from there. And some things will win, some things will lose, but if you cap your downside and focus on managing that, that's where you're going to keep yourself out of trouble.
And by that, in terms of trading, it's to stop setting a stop loss.
Yeah, stop loss would be one way to do it. Also thinking about position sizing, like what percentage of my portfolio do I want to have in this trade, and what are the probabilities of complete capital loss? Like what could happen where I lose all of this, right? And then run through those scenarios and try to eliminate those risks.
But you won't lose all the capital if you have a stop loss.
Well, sometimes, I mean, like in some DeFi projects, there is no stop loss, or you could actually lose your capital, like everything you put in.
Right.
Whenever I write a check to a startup, there's no stop loss on that.
True.
Right? When you're trading something that's liquid, yeah, in theory you can use stop losses, but sometimes there's flash crashes or liquidation events where your stop loss doesn't get hit at the price you want, and you could be like, how did I get filled 50% lower, right? That happens a lot in crypto, and people just don't know that. So these are the ways that you can get screwed if you don't have an education or know the way that the internals of these markets work. You're going to wake up and have a bad time.
And adding into that is you have to be able to read the charts.
Yes.
Right? That's a skill set that you have to have.
That's a skill set, yeah. And I mean, since the early 2000s, I've put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours into that. So you can choose your own adventure. Do you want to be a chartist? Do you want to really hone that skill? Or do you want to be more passive and long-term and not have to go through that learning process?
Yeah. And how does reading charts, because is it so mathematical that you can read a chart and predict? Because no one can predict, right? Because if you could, you were a trillionaire, of course.
Yeah.
Or
it's about weighing two things. When you look at a chart, some people, like when they get into trading, they're like, all right, show me the indicator that's going to tell me if it's going to go up or down. Doesn't exist. What charting is about is being able to look at a chart and say, what are the possibilities? Meaning, what are the potential things that could happen here? If the market goes up from here, what does that look like? If the market goes down from here, what does that look like? Weigh those possibilities, then weigh the probabilities. What is the likelihood that it's going to go up versus down? And then creating a plan. So possibilities, probabilities, and then creating a plan for each possible outcome. And that way you never get hurt. What rookies and amateurs will do is they'll try to do the bad P, which is predict. They'll try to predict, but professionals look at possibilities, everything that could happen, weigh the probabilities, what's most likely to happen, and then create plans around all the possible outcomes. That's the right way to use charts.
So it's just helping you make a better decision, essentially. Yeah,
it's just like thinking like a casino, right? Like, why does the casino make so much money? They understand the odds of the game and they manage their capital appropriately. Why do gamblers lose? Because the odds are against them and they have terrible money management.
So true, yeah.
Yep. Casino wasn't built on hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
They extract money from people that don't know how to think with that mental model.
Have you ever had an idea to start a casino?
Dude, if I could get a license to own a casino, absolutely. It's a license to print money, dude. It's free money, literally. That'd be amazing.
The ins and outs of that, though, the casino industry, of course, there's probably some secrets that you and I probably don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't have the knowledge, connections, or, yeah. But if I got the license, I could wave that around and recruit the people that do know. And you could build a massively profitable business. I think Trump is the only one that's actually ever lost money in the casino business.
He lost money? Really?
Yeah, he went bankrupt, dude. Yeah.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's real hard to lose money in the casino business.
Yeah, for sure. So with the Bitcoin, where do you think Bitcoin's going?
Oh, man, that's a good question. So right now, as of early October 2022, Bitcoin's about 75% off all-time highs. Historically, it's gone as low as like 85% off of all-time highs. So right now, we've been at support. It's either going to break 18 and go in between 9 and 12K, or if we break back up above 25K, then the bull market starts again. So we're kind of in a resting period, and those are the possibilities, right? Either an 18K support break, where we're going to go much lower, or a 25K break for a shift in market cycles.
And that would be confirming the bull run.
Yeah. It could. I mean, anything could happen, but those are the two highest probable outcomes.
And everyone is saying the bull run's going to start in 2024 in the first quarter.
It depends on who you listen to, and nobody knows for sure. The problem is when an idea becomes really popular, it becomes front run, and then it rarely plays out. So like this last market cycle, everybody was focused on 100K Bitcoin price, and then the stupid fucking laser eyes on the profiles came out, and everybody was doing that, and I'm like, no, 100K is probably not coming. It's being front run. Like when most market participants expect something, it's priced in, and it rarely actually happens, right? It's the unexpected thing that more likely to happen than not. Yeah.
And what the signs? What are the signs when you know it's market top?
Mass euphoria. Whenever I'm in an elevator and I hear 12-year-olds bragging about their crypto gains, that literally happened. I was in an elevator. I forget where I was. I think I was in, anyway, yeah, there was like some preteen kids that got in and they were talking about Dogecoin and, you know, DeFi and all this. And I was like, okay, we might have a market top. You know, nothing wrong with young folks in the markets, but it's like, in the span of a couple weeks, there was like several of these like anecdotal stories that I was seeing where I'm like, okay, everybody's rich in crypto right now. We're close to a top.
Yeah. And I remember that happened here in Bali as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I just heard it, and then they were making more jokes about it at the comedy club. And I was like, well, this could be the top. But I was like, again, the greed comes in. It's like, nah, this is not the top. It's going to keep going. That was when Bitcoin was at, what, 60-something?
69 was the high, yeah. Yeah, and then you had Elon go on SNL talking about Dogecoin.
That's right.
And then Mark Cuban was posting some dumb shit about it. And yeah, it's pretty obvious now with the way the market cycles are. Like, market sentiment is the most reliable thing. The charts can show you whatever, but yeah, whenever you see people bragging about gains, or on the other side, when people are rage quitting and when people are starting to write articles about the death of Bitcoin, you know, that I'm like, all right, we're close to a bottom.
Yeah, that was always funny to me over the years, seeing you talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, CNN, there they go again.
Yep. Yeah, 2015 was funny, man. They were just pumping those articles, and I'm like, all right, you guys do that. I'm gonna write my book about why this is gonna be huge. And market cycles are fun.
Yeah. So being a contrarian actually is very profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love bear markets, man. Bear markets are great because a lot of the scammers and the get rich quick guys go away, and it's the real builders that are left. And it's the most profitable time to buy, you know?
Yes. So as we're talking, we're in the bear market right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's been nice, actually. Like, a lot of the noise has kind of gone away again. And it's kind of like back to the old days, it feels like.
Because right now we're in the middle point, right? We're in like no man's land, if you want to call it that. Like, we can go lower, we can go higher. Yeah. So if we go lower, then it's obviously you would be buying a lot more Bitcoin. Yeah. To go to 9 to 12K.
Yeah. You know? Like I have some hedges on. So like obviously I own Bitcoin, but I have a short position that basically will make money as Bitcoin's price comes down. And that basically helps my drawdown, right? So like my long-term holdings, they go up and down in value, but I can dampen the drawdown in price by opening those short positions.
And that's kind of like day trading.
Kind of. It's not day trading because I'm holding that position for a longer period of time. Okay. But it is like active tactical trading. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so, why do you love bear markets so much?
Well, a lot of the noise goes away. Yep. It's profitable time to buy, and I have more time to like focus. Right. There's way less get rich quick people like asking really ignorant questions, right? It's a lot of people that understand why we are where we are and what to expect next. It's just a lot less stressful for me. And I enjoy the hate, right, that comes out in bear markets, like the articles, the obituary articles and the rage quitting. It's just kind of funny to me at this point.
Yeah, you've seen it all, man. You've seen it all.
Yeah.
And so what's the strategy in bet? Well, we actually touched on that. Is like you're investing and you're shorting Bitcoin, right? And you're also accumulating more as it goes. And so would that strategy be what you'd tell someone else to do right now if they're in the bear market? What, like accumulating cash and then deploying that capital, a portion of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, my general message is like accumulate when prices are lower. I never know where the exact bottom's going to be. I just know statistically where the bottoms have been, and I try to buy as close to those as possible. And then, choose your own adventure. Do you want to be active or do you want to be passive? And if you want to be active, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. But learn what you're doing first.
Yeah. And so we are going into depression.
Like a global depression. That's what everybody's saying. Yeah.
That's what everyone's saying, right?
Yeah. And look, I'm not a macro guy. This is what we talk about on our podcast. We talk money. Travis and Nikki are way smarter at looking at the macro data. I have no clue what's going to happen, and I really don't care. Every day I'm just going to focus on maximizing cash flow and investing. And if prices want to come down in stocks, prices want to come down in crypto, great. I get to buy lower.
So that's the Chris Dunn answer to the recession, upcoming depression.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of concerning things out there right now, and macro is just one of those things. Like, there's so many variables and there's so many moving parts. I don't know anybody that can predict the future of like recessions and economic collapses and things like that. I mean, we can talk about the bull case, we can talk about the bear case, but at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to happen.
But there's a lot of fear-mongering going on right now. Like, I mean,
Definitely.
If I was to just, like, entertain it, I'd be fucking shitting my pants right now.
I mean, fear sells.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's newsletters in the financial space that make billions of dollars selling fear. And there's one, I'm not going to name them. It's one of the biggest newsletter financial companies out there. They wanted me to be an affiliate a few years ago for one of their products, and I looked at the affiliate material. They had VSLs, video sales letters, ready to go for, it was like an election. If the Republican candidate won, here's the fear-based VSL. If the other candidate won, here's the narrative we're going to spin. So they had fear-based narratives for any situation, and it's like, people actually read this and believe it, but a copywriter made this up, and they're going to give you the negative spin no matter what happens. Like, you've got to protect your mind against that shit.
Yeah, so there's so much money in the fear narrative. And that's why, I mean, so actually, do you watch the news then?
What, like mainstream media?
Yeah.
No.
You don't watch mainstream media?
No. What I'll do, though, there's a website called allsides.com. And what they do is they look at the liberal media and the conservative media, and they'll take, like, say, like, there's a bombing somewhere, right? They'll give you the headline, like just the facts, like car bomb in whatever city. And then they'll show on the left, they'll say, this is what the liberal spin is and who they're blaming and what they're saying. And here's the conservative spin and what they're saying and who they're blaming. And so you can see objectively the bullshit. So you'll get the headline, and you'll get the information, and you'll see how they're spinning it different ways. So that's mostly what I do for mainstream news stuff.
Because you know that whatever these news outlets are putting out it's not the truth.
Yeah.
It's just what they want you to believe.
Exactly. And in the U.S., I mean, I'm just so disgusted with how, like, politically divided things are. You know, I did a video recently talking about, like, giving up on the American dream.
That's right. I saw that one,
Yeah, and I just think it's like so many people just get sucked into echo chambers of their own beliefs. And this is, I guess, a good investing lesson too, is like, you know, if you can break out of your own biases, either politically or religiously or whatever, and have a more broad understanding and being more open to different opinions, I think that'll just make you a better investor as well.
So I was actually quite surprised by your advice for this recession depression, but it makes perfect sense, and I'm glad I asked you that question because it's the strategy to implement is nothing different than what you've been doing.
Yeah,
you know. But if we listen to the fear narratives, they'll tell us that we've got we got to like get hunker down and like, start buying canned food because.
I mean, look, I did that.
Yeah.
I bought a ranch.
Yeah.
I could be self-sustainable. We have animals and like, I've got maybe a year's worth of like supplies, but like do that and then move on. Like, don't make that your life, right?
Right.
A lot of people, they just think that the world's coming to an end, and it could, right? We could have a nuclear war or some bad shit could happen, but like, why would you want to live your day-to-day life expecting that or like ruminating in that negativity, man? It's like, wake up, have the best days that you can, do what you can to build wealth and make an impact, and then move on.
And the purpose that you were speaking to earlier is really important, because if you don't have a purpose, then you just kind of like, you don't have any, you're just kind of like a leaf in the wind almost.
Yeah.
There's no strategy, there's no reason for what you're doing.
Right.
So you have that clear purpose, and you're very clear on that.
Yeah, I had to, right? Because like, I know a lot of wealthy people that are just like miserable and really unfulfilled. And so money doesn't guarantee happiness. It affords you comforts in life. But yeah, if you have a purpose and something to focus on, I think that's really what gives, when people say happiness, I think what they're saying is like fulfillment, right? Like, what makes me feel good? What makes me feel fulfilled in life? And money will never, ever give that to you. It's just a tool, right? It can get you stuff that can bring happiness, like a boat or a podcast studio to hang out with friends and have good conversations.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I'll kick that back to you too. Like, what's your purpose right now?
I love it when people ask me questions on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, it always comes out of left field. As you can see, I'm deflecting right now.
Yeah. No, it's good, man. I don't know. Or have you thought through that, or are you still finding it?
I'm going to answer it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was asked this actually yesterday on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, for me, it's just inspiring people, because that's something that comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
It's just what my default is if I hear someone's got a cool story, I just want to, my default is, I want to share it with people.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't know where that comes from, but that's just in me. And so that's one of the primary drivers. That's why making content for me is just like second nature, because it's just, that's what I like doing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was just in Thailand with one of my first mentors, and he was like, dude, why don't you just stop making content for 3 months? And I was like, what am I going to do, you know? Like, that's just what I like. So that's part of my purpose. And then, of course, the next thing is my family, and giving them more magical moments and stuff, and spending more time with them. Like, as I'm speaking to you right now, I haven't seen them for 2.5 years. So, so I'm going to go back for Christmas to see them, and just really understanding more of the importance of my family, you know, because, you know, you can make friends in life, but your family is always going to like love you unconditionally, you know, so, yeah, that'll
be good to go back. So basically making an impact in other people's lives, and then how you do that is through your content.
Yeah, and really just enjoy my life to the fullest. And adding to that, freedom, which is what I was meditating the other day, and this is what came to me during my meditation. So I think freedom, because freedom is involved in my purpose, is being free to do what I want when I want, stuff like that.
Yep.
So freedom for me is financial freedom, emotional freedom, like being able to say what I want and express myself how I want. And then physical freedom, like being able to just be free in my body and not have pain and stuff like that. So that's also my purpose, those 3 things.
So financial, emotional, and physical.
Yeah, like being self-expressed, like saying what I want to say. Because, you know, there's so many times that I've wanted to say things, but I haven't said them. So I'm practicing that constant. And that's one of my values, too, is self-expression. So when I was in Thailand, my friend, he owns a bar there, and I was doing karaoke, like in front of people. That was my biggest fear, is doing singing in front of people. Because I did stand-up comedy. That's fine. That's easy.
Really?
But singing for me in front of people is like, that's, I don't know why it's so scary.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I was just facing that fear head on. And
yeah, you seem good at like taking meaningful steps, like face fears, right? Didn't you do that with like bungee jumping?
That's
too?
right, yeah.
So you're like terrified of that. So you're like, let me just go into that hardcore.
Yes.
How many jumps did you do?
15 jumps in 6 days. Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice. The last one I jumped backwards on 106 meters. That was the most scariest thing I've ever done in my fucking life. Like jumping backwards, because imagine like let's say the camera is the platform, and then you just see the people getting smaller and smaller as you're falling back. It's the craziest thing.
That's wild. So like now, did you lose the fear of jumping, or would you say the fear is still there?
It's still there, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still scared of heights, but I'll do it again.
Yeah.
So I've lost that fear of doing it, but the fear of heights is still there.
Okay, but I guess when you face that and you do it over and over, that I guess kind of lessens the anxiety or trains it so you have confidence that you can do it if you need to, even if you're not really comfortable doing it.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do there is just to use that as an anchor for when I'm scared about doing things in my life. Like, for example, I've discovered, this is actually a good topic to segue into, I discovered that my biggest fear in life is losing money. But that happened to me last year, right? Like I lost like a lot of my net worth, right, last year. And that was my biggest fear. So it's crazy how that happened. And now, like,
you're still here.
People wouldn't know that. Like, if they knew like how much I lost and everything, like they'd be like, dude, like, why you're not sad? Like, you know, like because people see what I show them. But yeah, that was really painful. And the fear of losing money for me, that's been my biggest work, and I'm still working on that. Because it's like, that's why I'm not running ads, because like I'm scared of losing money. You know, it's there. Yeah,
there's a lot of behavioral, like psychological stuff with money that people really struggle with, and there's several good books out there about it that can help. But it's interesting to hear you say that that's like your biggest fear, because for a lot of people, like, money is life, right? Like, it gives us the ability to have freedom, to sustain life, right? So it's a very important thing, but that stress causes a lot of, like, behavioral problems, like not doing rational actions around money, right?
Yeah.
It's such a important thing to, I think, for us to focus on and, like, learn about. And even if somebody's not an active trader, just to understand how your mind works around money is really valuable.
Yeah, so that's why I asked you that question earlier about, do you know anyone that's made millions who hasn't lost money? Because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I've reread that many times over the years and recently.
Yeah.
And he talked about that, you know, fear of losing money, and how, you know, a lot of people that are rich because they've lost money before.
Yeah.
You know, and they just keep, it's a game, like you will lose some. You got to keep playing.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to like, what levels of risk are you taking? Because if you like have a startup, you sell it for $100 million, and then you're sitting in cash, like, it's possible not to really lose a lot of that, except to inflation, right? But if you're like a really high risk taker in the markets or real estate, like, yeah, you could like make a lot and then have a big drawdown. But most people that I know that have done well over the long term, they just focus again on like risk management, right? So their net worth over time will have dips, but the equity curve should look like this over time, right? Run retracement to the upside, instead of like these massive swings where it's like, yeah, I'm up 20 million bucks, shit, back to zero. Like, if you're doing that, something's wrong, right? The goal is not perfection, and the goal is not to never lose money, but the goal is to, over time, just continually head in the right direction.
So what do you look for with your net worth year-on-year returns? Are you looking for like, all right, I want to increase my net worth by 10% per year?
I kind of released any of my own goals on that, because it really depends on what the markets are doing. I've had years where it's gone down, and I've had years where it's gone up many orders of magnitude, right? So I just, instead of setting like an arbitrary goal, I focus on like, what are the actions I can do to give me the best chance of capturing what opportunities are presented to me, right? So I think like having like for a trader, like a daily profit goal is the worst thing you can do, because it'll force you to do bad things. Where like on a year-over-year net worth basis, if I'm like, oh shit, I want to make 20% this year, but I'm down 5%, then all of a sudden I'm going to start taking on more risk to try to chase that. And then instead of just being down 5%, maybe I'm down 25%, right? So the markets don't care about your goals. They just offer opportunity, and you can either take it or let it pass you by. That's kind of how I think of it.
I like that. I like that perspective on that, on net worth. So you're not super attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I just focus on those daily actions, right? And I know over longer periods of time, it's going to compound and it's going to go up if I just don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, right. Do you keep anything in index funds?
Any index funds?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing that as an entrepreneur in the U.S. you can do is set up your own pension. This is like a tax hack. Like if you have a big profit year where you've made several $1 million, you can take, I think the maximum is like $600K and put it in your own pension in a year, and that's like a deduction off of the top line. So like I've done that several years where I've taken like the maximum that I can stick in there, and then typically the longer term retirement stuff I just put in index funds and just let that be completely passive with the goal of just over time compounding and not having massive drawdowns. I know I'm not going to quadruple that in a year, but I'm okay because that's longer term money.
And you just leave it there. You just hold it there.
Yeah.
Do you take any dividends from that, or you just leave
you get a dividend
right?
yield,
That's
but
right.
I reinvest that. Yeah.
Oh, are you reinvested back into the?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then that money will probably be like my retirement money. Right? So basically what I've done is I've like front loaded my retirement. So it's basically fully funded at this time. And I just know it's only going to grow over time. So I don't have to worry about retirement. And I would encourage any entrepreneur or investor, focus on that, right? Front load your retirement now. That way, when you do get to retirement age, you don't have to worry.
And one of the strategies to do that is to put it in index funds.
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the better options that you have is for passive investing, index funds. And, obviously this isn't personalized financial advice, like talk to a financial advisor because everybody's situation is different. And like Nikki is a CFP, she's a financial planner, and she's really good at, talking through this stuff too. So she could also help.
Yeah. And what's that yielding, the index funds? What do they typically yield per year?
After inflation, about 7 or 8% a year.
Okay.
So it's and that's why I like stocks. So there's a long history of good returns in the stock market. Right?
Yeah.
Bonds, who knows? I mean, depends on what interest rates are doing, but yeah, own good companies, right? Like own portions of good companies and then just let them grow over time.
That's simple but solid advice.
Yeah. That's why, like, when I see the crypto people saying, "Oh, the stock market's a scam," I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, yes, I understand the Fed and all these conspiracy theories and stuff, but it's like own companies. That's a great way to build wealth.
So Amazon, what do you think the future is of Amazon?
Amazon, oh man, I don't know. I mean, they're already so massive. Like the problem is when you look at a company like Amazon, their market cap is already so massive. The odds of them doubling or tripling from here are a lot lower than like finding a newer company, right, that could grow by 10, 20, 50x, right? So when you're tactically investing, you're probably not looking for the Amazons of the world. You're looking for Amazon in 2000, right? Like you want to be much earlier.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to what we were saying earlier about, understanding the opportunities and, the growth, just doing your research and being like, all right, this company has like growth, has like a 10x in it in the next few years if they do X and X, Y, Z.
Yeah. And that's what Travis and Nikki are really good at is on the stock side doing that research. Yeah.
And you said something, ask your financial advisor. That's just an assumed thing. But for most people, they're like, I don't have, a financial advisor? What?
Yeah. True. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, if they're working a regular job, at least in the U.S., like they'll just put money in a 401k and then they don't really know what's in there. Entrepreneurs and self-employed people and freelancers really have to take ownership of that because nobody's looking out for you. And if you don't make good decisions early on, it's going to hurt you later. So it makes sense to get a really good financial advisor. Even if you're not wealthy, right? Get somebody to help you along the way.
And how would they help specifically with what we're talking about, like allocating money to this and to that?
Well, so Nikki's a CFP, right? I'll use her as an example.
Yes.
She doesn't do asset management.
Right.
Like she doesn't take a fee for managing assets. She educates and then helps people create comprehensive financial plans, but like there's kind of like 6 areas. Let me see if I can remember. Cash flow maximization, tax minimization, investing the proper way, estate planning, and then one other one. But like there's like pillars of financial planning that people need to really focus on early in life, because it's going to pay dividends decades down the road. But a lot of people just aren't really taught those things, or they think they have to be wealthy to get access to that service or that education. But that's really not the case. There's a lot of really good stuff out there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't see the point if they're not making like millions. They're
right.
Like, why am I going to do it if I'm not making millions?
Well, because if you do get to a point where you have a big year, you want to make sure you have your ducks in a row and that you've structured your business the right way, that you know how to minimize taxes, that you know what to do with that cash flow. Because for an entrepreneur, sometimes the best thing isn't to put your cash in an index fund. It's probably better to reinvest it in your own business, right? And if you understand the right way to build a business's value, right, that can be another way to grow significant wealth. Build a sellable business, right? It's an asset.
When did you build your business, your current business, your current community?
2000. So Skill Incubator, I want to say it was 2013 or 2014 when we started doing the group online stuff. Before that, it was developing software for traders, which came with a training component, what was that, 07, 08. And then, yeah, it's kind of developed into this thing now where we have the team. And yeah, Travis joined us, I think, 3 years ago.
So you're running that business and also doing your active trading and passive trading.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that, your time?
Pretty well. I mean, it's, we do a mixture of online classes, and then pre-COVID we were doing a couple live events a year. Like we took everybody down to the Cayman Islands, Amsterdam, Austin, stuff like that. And we're hoping to get back to that now, doing more in-person things, which those are easy to do. And then, we have a Discord channel online where we have different chat rooms. And yeah, it's pretty manageable. Because like I said, I'm not trading all day every day. It's anywhere from like 10 minutes a day to 2 hours a day at the most.
And then the other time you're enjoying your lifestyle.
That's right, man.
Yep.
Yeah, traveling, living the dream, hanging out with good folks like you.
So was that always the goal then, is to just live wherever you wanted to, travel however you wanted to? Like if you want to go business class, you can go business class. Like, if you want to stay in a 5-star hotel, like it's no problem. Like, is that what you wanted? Was that what you were optimizing for?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to you, my biggest goal was just freedom of choice, freedom of like location. Like growing up as a military kid, I was used to moving around a lot, and so I like traveling. I've been to a lot of places around the world, and I just love that continual, like, on-the-go feel. But yeah, it's nice to be able to fly business class. It's nice to be able to go to Singapore and stay in a 5-star hotel after being in a villa here, so having that freedom to make those decisions is great.
And you're only doing that with the what money are you using to afford that lifestyle? Is that your expense money or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not selling assets to support that lifestyle. Right. Like my goal is to constantly have a large cash flow every month from business income and active trading income, and then whatever's left over at the end of the month, put that back in. But yeah, every month I have pretty significant expenses, and that comes off of the cash flow.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I never really want to have to sell assets to support a lifestyle. It should be going the other direction.
Right. Yeah. That's a big piece of information there. Yeah. It's like selling assets to support a lifestyle. I think that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah. I mean, and
it's an easy trap to fall into.
It is. And I mean, eventually at some point, when I retire fully, like that'll probably have to happen. But, that's why you front load those retirement accounts, so you don't have to really worry about it.
So let's talk about step one, because the 3 rules of money, like you said, increase the cash flow, right? So what would be, if someone was to ask you, what would be your advice for people to increase their cash flow?
Start a business. I mean, I think in today's world, there's no excuse for not making a lot of money. And I say that like, I know I need to be cautious when I say that because it's like, oh yeah, easy for you, right? I hear that a lot. But like, we have the tools and the resources. Like, there's no excuse to be in a job that you hate today. Go create something. Go build something. Like, there's no excuse anymore. So yeah, start a business and live frugally if you need to. Like I did for a few years until I started getting the M's rolling in. You know, it was like, told Nikki, we're not going out to dinner. Told my buddy, I'm like, hey man, we're going to be roommates for another couple of years while I build my assets back up, right? Like sacrifice early, and build something that's meaningful, and then be smart with that money and put it in the markets, get invested.
Yeah. But is okay, so build a business, that's your number one way, right? That's the best way for people. Yeah,
because I think, you know, yeah, you could put money in markets and get a return, but for every, you know, let's say you can double $1 in the markets, right? I'm just making this up. Turn 1 into 2 in the markets. You can take 1 and turn it into 50 or 100 in your own business. Like, that is the best investment, I think, is your own business.
Yeah, and people, if they're thinking about investing, let's say if they got 10 grand, because this is a common thing that, I mean, you've done a video on this.
I have a YouTube video about it.
Yeah, you've done a video on this. So if they got 10 grand and they're like, oh, what do I invest in? You broke it down in that video. Like, hey, I put 2 grand in emergency, right? Yeah. And then 3 grand in, passive or active?
Probably passive if somebody is just starting off. Yeah. I mean, obviously step 1 is like you want to have, I would say minimum 6 months runway of living expenses in the bank that, you know, if the shit hits the fan, you're not going to starve, right? So start with that. Get that money and never touch that. Right. And minimize your expenses, so that needs to be a smaller number, right? And then from there, I would say above that, take cash and put it in your own business. If you want to invest in crypto and stuff like that, yeah, do that, but do that with a smaller percentage of your net worth in the beginning, and just focus on generating cash flow. So many people focus on business ideas, or they spend years and years hemming and hawing. It's like, get sales, sell something. It's easier to sell high ticket stuff than it is mass volume with small margins. So learn high ticket sales, stuff like that.
I'd add to that, or affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I've adding to what you're saying is the wealth dynamics thing that I took. Yeah. It made me realize, wow, like the way that my path to wealth, which is what I did when I met you, like before I moved into the health space, I was just doing affiliate marketing. Right. And that was just building relationships and having them mail their list to my offer. Yeah. And that was just easy. Like, it's just like, fuck, I'm making all this money, you know? And so I'm getting back to that now because that's just an easy way for me to do it.
Right. Yeah, you know that skill set well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's just one I'd add in there because I think affiliate marketing is amazing.
Yeah, I remember when we were introduced, people were like, man, that's Aaron Darko. He's a badass marketer, man. Like, you need to listen to what he has to say about list building and offers. And yeah, dude. I think at the time you had one of the biggest offers on ClickBank or something, right?
But they that's all perception, right?
Yeah.
Actually, adding to what you're saying, this is good that we're talking about this because I've now realized that I got success without a skill set being built in the first place. Like I didn't actually like have a real hard, solid skill set. I knew something that worked, but I didn't actually have anything that worked. It was like one magic trick. So I got this magic trick, and then when it stops working, I ain't got nothing.
What was that magic trick?
It was like understanding, all right, how to build a list, you know, how to promote an offer. That was it.
I mean, that's a valuable skill, though.
Yeah, but there's more to learn about marketing.
Sure.
To be a really good marketer, like how to create an offer. Like I didn't have that skill set. Oh, yeah. Right? And how to drive traffic, how to do paid ads, all this stuff I didn't know. Yeah. You know, so now I'm it's kind of like the trading thing. Like the whole paid traffic thing, I don't like sitting at a screen just looking at numbers. Mm-hmm. But I know that that's required if I want to master the skill set of being good at paid traffic. Right. And I'm willing to go through that shit, if that makes sense, to do that.
Yeah, the learning curve is uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. It's like jiu-jitsu. That's what jiu-jitsu has taught me is you have to go through that shit. Like there's going to be a period of eating shit. Like, you're just going to get... And jiu-jitsu is relentless. It's always like that.
Yeah.
But, it's just a humbling thing. But that's a good thing. It reinforces that, you need to go through the learning curve.
Yeah. And, to what we were talking about, like, with sales, it's like, there's 3 ways to do it, right? You can either sell a product for someone else, right? Like, get hired by someone else to sell their product. You could create your own product and sell that, or you could do affiliate marketing and through your own efforts sell someone else's product. But there's so many ways to do that and to make good money without like building a big business, without having to have $1 million in the bank. Like, you can be scrappy and make $1 million a year in online marketing or sales, or there's just so many avenues, right?
Yeah, and on that note, Gary Vaynerchuk, he shared something, and he said, just be an enthusiast. He's like, everyone wants to be an expert, but you actually make more money if you were just an enthusiast. And I thought that was an interesting concept, because he's like, I don't actually say I'm an expert in business. I just talk about business. Yeah. I talk about all the stuff he talks about, right? And going to what you just said about affiliate marketing, like, people can just be an enthusiast and build an audience and then start selling just different things that they're enthusiastic about. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's like, share your learning journey, right? You don't have to put yourself out there as like the smartest person in the world. You could say, hey, I'm really into XYZ and let me share what I learned, right? Yeah.
And as I look back on my career in the last few years, I've been way too attached to being an expert. And it's actually hurt me a lot, because I would think I would have had more growth being just an enthusiast rather than trying to be an expert in the space. And that whole thing of trying to be an expert, it's an interesting concept to me, because did you ever try to be an expert at trading, or were you just doing trading?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it's like the whole idea of like trying is like a facade, right? It's like, no, just talk about what you're into and what you enjoy, and share the knowledge you have, and you don't have to pretend to be something, right?
And then that helps make money, because now there's a trust there that people can relate to, and then when you recommend a product, they're more likely to buy it because they trust you, because you tell the truth. You're just talking about your experiences. Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Yeah. So there's a book I was reading called Trust-Based Marketing by Dan Kennedy, and talks about how to build trust in marketing and sales and stuff like that. But anyway, so it's been a good chat so far.
Yeah, man. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've been going for a while, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything we haven't covered.
I think we've covered a lot. Hopefully people didn't lose too much interest talking about the risk management stuff. I know it's not the sexiest thing to talk about, but that is the key that a lot of people are missing. It's just like not making stupid mistakes, right? And if you do, it's okay. Learn from them and move on.
Yeah, because that's the first goal, is to not lose your shirt. Like, stay in the game.
Yeah, rule number 1, don't lose money, right? And like, you're gonna lose money, but like, just cap the downside and focus on risk management. And over a long period of time, you're gonna make a lot of money.
How much?
That's the thing about compounding, right? Like, Warren Buffett got rich not because he's like smarter than everybody else, but because he's just been investing for so fucking long. You know, he's a dinosaur, and like, if you look at where his like real billions came from, it was like after the age of 50. You know, so it takes time to build wealth. It doesn't happen overnight, so patience is key.
Is he one of your main inspirations?
I'm kind of split. I mean, he's really good at a specific skill set, right? Value investing in stocks. He's really good at that. When he talks about Bitcoin, he should probably just keep his mouth shut. He sounds very ignorant when he talks about crypto. And he's not a technology guy, right? He's admitted that. He has a very specific skill set. And I don't put any investor or entrepreneur on a pedestal. I think we're all fallible. I think, even the best investors, public investors have had massive losses, right? And like, it's hard to be consistently right time and time again for long periods of time. So I think anybody that puts themselves out there as like a investing master is just one decision away from imploding, right? We've got to stay humble. You want to be confident, like walk this tightrope between like confidence but not cocky, and conservative but not scared. Right, like it's a fine line to not make mistakes.
Yeah. And what is the plan for you? Like, do you think, this is a question I asked you before we went on air, which is, do you think you'll be a billionaire in your lifetime? Well, actually, I didn't ask that. I said, do you think you'll be a billionaire in the next 10 to 20 years?
I don't know, and I don't really care. Like, all I care about is, like, my day-to-day, like, living my best average day as much as possible and being able to stay in the game. Like, if I hit $1 billion, it'll probably not be that big of a deal. I'll look at it and be like, oh, cool, crossed $1 billion anyway. Like, for me, it's just the act of being able to do what I love, and the number is just a number. As long as I can sustain my ideal lifestyle, anything above that is just cake.
I like that. It's a very simple lifestyle then.
Yeah.
Very simple life you're living then.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap. I'm not living on a backpacker budget. You know, I do like to indulge and go out to the best restaurants and stay at the nicest places and fly business class, you know. So I'm not, you know, one of these like budgeting guys, but at the same time, I'm not blowing insane amounts of money on stupid shit either.
Yeah. So it's because why that's interesting to me, that answer, is because they always tell you to, you know, have goals. Yeah. So I guess that's another question I should ask is, do you have financial goals for the next few years?
Man, I wish I had a better answer, but no. Like, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and keep growing. And I guess if there was a tangible goal, like something I could actually say, it would be like, I want to find the next Bitcoin. Like, what is the next big thing? And this is what Travis and Nikki and I talk about all the time on the podcast, is like, what is the next thing, right? And that is what wakes me up excited every day, is I know there's something coming, right? There's all this development, there's all this innovation that's happening. And when I say the next Bitcoin, I don't mean literally like the next cryptocurrency. I mean the next big investment idea. It could be a private company, it could be a public company, it could be a product, it could be intellectual property, it could be something. But what's the next investment that I can make that's going to be huge and exciting and fun? So as long as I can keep doing that and keep on that chase, that's probably the biggest goal. Because the money and the numbers, I don't really know. I mean, it could be $1 billion, it could be 1 million, who knows? Right. But it's the act of doing.
And that's fun. That just as you say that, I'm like, wow, that's fun. Like, to find that, you know.
It is cool. Yeah, and it feels good to be able to, like, you know, shame the haters, right? Like all the people that were like, Chris, you're an idiot 10 years ago. I'm like, okay. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So you're officially a Bitcoin OG.
I would say so. I was one of the first guys in the world doing videos on YouTube about Bitcoin, which now it seems like everybody's a crypto YouTuber.
Yeah. Yeah, all the crypto YouTuber experts.
Yeah.
We'll just leave that at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it there.
So you said the best average day.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Perfect average day, like ideal average day, right?
That's something you're extremely clear on, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I want to wake up, have no appointments that I have to go to, like other than things I enjoy, right? Like this was obviously a scheduled thing that I was stoked for. But like I don't want to wake up and feel like I have all these like responsibilities, you know, one after the other, call after call or whatever. Like to me, that wouldn't be the perfect day. It's waking up, being able to do what I do in the markets, serving our community, and then having fun.
Yeah, it's very simple, but that's a very powerful exercise for people to do so they can understand, right? I mean, actually, that's something that I'm going to do again because I've done it so many times, but it always changes for me. So I'm like,
oh, nice.
Okay, so how would I actually want to spend my days?
Yeah.
You know? And how much money do I need to afford me this lifestyle that I want to live?
Yep.
And then work back from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people put focus on like, you know, the material things or like the big idea, but at the end of the day, it's like, what does your day look like? That's what life is, right? Like, what do you do on the average day from the time you wake up to go to sleep? Like, optimize that. Make that as best as you can.
I should say, I'm like, that's a nice Instagram reel.
Nice.
That's what my brain was.
Yeah, man, you're a content guy. You're good at it.
There's so many clips in here we can cut off.
Yeah.
So good. But yeah, the best average day. And so after you became a millionaire, did you have more goals, or were you like, I'm a millionaire now, I'm just going to continue what I'm doing, and I know I'm going to increase my wealth, my net worth?
Yeah.
Was it like that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the progression is like, okay, you want to first make your first million, right? Once you get a million, then you're like, oh shit, I didn't keep all of the million, so now I want to have $1 million in the bank. And then from there, it's kind of like, all right, what do you do? Do you say 5? Do you say 10? Like, to me, that wasn't fun. The next goal for me was I want my dream ranch paid off. Got the boat, got, toys and stuff like that is always fun. But it's evolved into like, what I said earlier, which was like just being able to continue the chase. Just do that and continue to look for the next big thing. And that's really all that matters now. I don't know. I guess I kind of ran out of like tangible goals. Like, I guess I could say like a private jet, but I would never spend like $50 million on a jet. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess if I was worth $1 billion, maybe I'd consider it.
But still a large portion. That's 5% of your net worth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it also costs a lot to operate, and I don't know. I kind of like flying commercial. Like, I just love airports.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the act of traveling and just the excitement and the energy in airports. I love it.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. I hate it.
You do? Yeah,
well,
I feel like it's really like.
I don't hate it. It's just it would be nice to just pull up in a car to the plane and get on the plane.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying though. It's the transit of thousands of people. It's interesting.
Yeah. I love people watching, and I'll usually get to the airport like way earlier than I need to, and sometimes I'll go in the lounges, but I like to like just be out in the busy walking areas and just walk or just watch and like think about what people are doing and where they're going. And chat people up and
yeah. So you have this curiosity and fascination with people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to come up with investment ideas too, right? Just being interested in people and what people are doing and thinking about and the problems they have and what would make their lives better.
And the problems that you're experiencing as you're traveling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And the last thing I had for you, the question I had for you is, you had a video where you say why your first 100K is the hardest. So why is that true? Because I know that Charlie Munger says this also.
Yeah.
So why is that true?
Because you're starting from zero, right? It's a lot easier to go from like 5 million to 10 million to double.
Yeah. It's
a lot easier to do that than it is to go from like $0 to 100,000 because you're starting with zero, right? And like when you have capital begets more capital, meaning like it just grows easier the more you have. That's why like compounding works like that, right? It's like slow in the beginning, and then the longer you compound for, it's just like you add another M, add another million, But like starting from zero, especially if you don't have like a valuable skill set, to build up to that 100K, it could take some time and it'll feel like a drag and it'll take a lot of work. But once you get to 100K, I feel like going from 100K to like 500 is a lot faster, right? And it just speeds up over time.
So it's harder for people starting from zero.
Yeah.
It's also a skill set thing, right? You got to build up the skills to start generating the income as well.
Yeah. And a lot of people make mistakes earlier on too, right? Like you might go from like, oh, okay, I have $0 in the bank to now I have 10K. Now I'm back to zero. There's a lot more volatility in those early stages. And people are more apt to making mistakes where they lose a majority of their net worth in that 100K or less zone, right? Where once you get to a point where you've got a few $1,000,000 in the bank, most people aren't going to take bets on their entire net worth, right? So it's just the drawdowns are less.
Yeah, and it's there's a fear of losing money even if you have a lot. Do you have that fear?
Yeah, I think it's healthy to have I would call it like loss aversion, right? Like you don't want to lose money. Like it hurts to lose money. I wouldn't say I'm fearful of it because I know I've done the right things to diversify and to protect it, right? We could wake up tomorrow and the stock market is completely shut down because there's a nuclear war, right? That would suck, but like there's things that are outside of our control. So I know what's inside of my sphere of influence and what I can control, and if I do the best at that, what am I scared of?
One thing that I've realized is the best entrepreneurs of our time, they could lose it all and make it back, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I didn't have the confidence to do that until it happened to me. You know, that I lost it all, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
And then you did it again.
And now, yeah, well, I'm on the way back. So
Right.
this is what Russell Brunson talks about. He said, I don't trust entrepreneurs that haven't cycled, by meaning like they made a big hit, and then they lost it all, and then they made it back.
Right.
He's like, I don't trust anyone who hasn't gone through that.
Yeah.
In business, if they want me to invest in their business or whatever, stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. But
yeah, if you've only known success,
yeah,
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing you probably don't have that fear. Like if you were to, obviously touch wood, that doesn't happen, but if that was to happen, you wouldn't be scared because you trust in the skill sets that you've built over the years.
Yeah.
That you can make it, and the connections that you can make it back.
Yeah, like there's non-financial assets that I think are just as valuable as money, right? Which is like your network, your skill set, your prior knowledge from the prior business things that you've done. Like that shit is so valuable, right? Because money is fickle, it comes and goes. But those things, as long as you have like physical health and mental health, right? Like you can go out and recreate money. Like we live in such a time of abundance where, just like I said earlier, there's no excuse not to go build a business for yourself. And if you're willing to put in the work, I think it's the most rewarding thing you could do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I second that.
Oh, yeah.
And on that note, I got one more question, which I ask every single guest.
All right.
What is the meaning of life in your own words?
Oh, the meaning of life is to live as many perfect average days as possible, you know, and to use that to have fulfillment, right? It means different things to different people, but focus on those perfect average days and focus on things that are actually meaningful and fulfilling to you. There's no right answer. Choose your own adventure.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you'll be traveling to 100 countries like Chris.
Well, there you go.
Over 100. Yeah. So thanks, Chris, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, man. This was fun.
Yeah, and you dropped a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and I'm sure that this will help someone. Because that's another thing, right? That's the only reason even if only one person gets value from this, that's worth it for me.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. A lot of people get caught up in the vanity metrics of how many views, how many this. It's like, did you impact someone? That's what actually matters.
Yeah. And as long as that's happening, I'm going to keep doing this podcast.
Hell yeah, man. Keep it up, dude. Yeah, you've been doing some great content.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, guys. And you check out Chris Dunn TV on Instagram.
Yeah. And
then chrisdunn.com. And also, you can go to search him on YouTube, Chris Dunn, with double N, by the way, if you're listening. Yeah. And where else? That's it?
That's about it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they can find all the links from there.
Yep. Yeah. All right, awesome. All right, see you guys soon. Ciao.